guys, it's Angelo, and welcome to my Shadow Priest guide for patch 8.0 in WoW's newest adventure, Battle for Azeroth. I am so excited to present this guide to you guys, and I'm pretty sure that all of you are just as excited to know and learn more about the Shadow Priest in BFA. There are a lot of things that have changed, and in this guide, I will strive to cover them as in-depth and detailed as possible. Battle for Azeroth Shadow Priest takes a huge leap away from the playstyle in Legion with heavier AoE damage, more direct damage rather than damage over time, and a simplified DPS rotation in order to cater the spec to all levels of gameplay, be it questing, raiding, or Mythic plus content. The new playstyle of the Shadow Priest replaces ramp-up time with more instant damage, but therefore cuts down on the potential damage we were able to do in Legion with high Void Form stacks, as our Void Forms will fall much shorter in Battle for Azeroth. Currently, good Shadow Priests will see themselves competing with formidable damage in most scenarios, and with this guide, you too will hopefully be able to apply new knowledge into practice. In this guide, we will go over an overview of changes from Legion to BFA, our stat priority, your best talents for various situations and why they should be used, your rotation, and the overall pros and cons we face in patch 8.0. Now, I will cover our rotation as constructive as possible, but if you want to have a much more in-depth look specifically at our rotation, be sure to check out my Shadow Priest DPS rotation video for this patch. The link should be displayed on screen now, and is down in the description as well. But now, of course, without any further ado, let's go right ahead and have a look. Now, as mentioned previously, many things have changed for our spec. The main changes are found in our talent rows and our gameplay, while our toolkit and our spells have essentially remained unchanged. Let's go ahead and check it out. First off, our artifact weapon, Xalatath, the Blade of the Black Empire, is gone. And with it, so are all of our artifact traits, both passives and actives. Our most defining ability throughout all of Legion has also been removed from its baseline and is now found as a talent, and of course I'm talking about nothing less than Void Torrent. It now shares its talent row with Lingering Insanity and Mindbender, which significantly hinders its capabilities for us when playing, but more on that in just a moment. The global cooldown changes, which were implemented in Battle for Azeroth, are also very apparent, with things like Dispersion, racial abilities, and most other spells now sharing a global cooldown at all times. This makes gameplay decisions weigh a lot heavier on you as a player, but after some time of getting used to these changes, honestly I doubt you will have many problems, as the class still kinda plays out logical and smooth to a certain extent. The amount of auspicious spirits flying around has also been dropped, and this can be traced back to you having a lot less critical strike rating initially now than at the end of Legion. Void forms in general are a lot slower now and end a lot quicker due to low amounts of haste, as well as the aforementioned global cooldown changes. Most of the time, you will see yourself dropping out of Void form anywhere within 20 to 30 stacks, sometimes even earlier, and it becomes very clear that at this point in time, Void Form feels more like that cousin's birthday party which you really don't want to go to, but kind of have to because your mom said so. Aww. Short ramp-up times make for easier access for very competitive damage in any situation, however, at the cost of class complexity, which is something I personally am not a fan of, but can understand. So, to summarize here, a lot more AoE damage, quicker ramp-up time, but therefore slower overall gameplay and a more mundane playstyle. So far, so good. Now, let's go ahead and look at our stats. Not much has really changed when we're discussing our stats. After the stat squish with Battle for Azeroth, secondary stats are a lot weaker in comparison to main stats now, which bumps up intellect to your most important stat to go for. After this, critical strike and haste are very, very close to one another, In the BFA pre-patch, which is where we are currently if you're watching this video before the official release of Battle for Azeroth, then Critical Strike will be slightly ahead of Haste. In BFA however, and at level 120, Haste will pull slightly ahead of Critical Strike again, and you'll want to aim for more Haste. It's very difficult to rank these two stats, and I'll put Haste slightly ahead, but the difference in these two is relatively minuscule. Along with the changes to gear, especially with Azerite items only having intellect and stamina, and you will have 3 of those, don't worry about which stats to prioritize too much, as long as Haste is the stat of these two you aim to have more of. Mastery and Versatility pull very close to one another as well, however, Mastery synergizes a lot better with the entire kit we have and gains more bonus out of the player having higher Haste and Mastery. Try sticking to this stat priority as good as you can, with Haste being the primary secondary stat you go for, and you should be just fine. Next up we have our talents, and there are definitely a lot more changes here to discuss than in any other aspect of the Shadow Priest in Battle for Azeroth. Therefore, there's a lot to discuss, so let's go right ahead and take a look. Many talents have been shifted around and into other talent rows, while other talents have been completely removed. You will definitely find yourself in a completely different situation when it comes to talents than previously in Legion, so there is a lot to discuss here. What's important to keep in mind though is that the decisions you make in choosing your talent build will highly depend on which level 100 talent you choose. Legacy of the Void will have a different playstyle than Dark Ascension, which will be the only 2 primary level 100 talents you'll be using. Your level 15 talent row now consists of Fortress of the Mind, Shadowy Insight, and Shadow Word Void. All 3 are actually relatively competitive to one another, but for PvE, Fortress of the Mind and Shadow Word Void will pull ahead in most situations. Fortress of the Mind is very strong if you opt to play with Dark Void, as Dark Void will allow you to enter Void form very quickly, and the Insanity increase to Mind Flay and Mind Blast through Fortress of the Mind will increase this process by a landslide, and as quicker Void forms also mean more damage, this combination is seriously strong. Shadow Word Void on the other hand is very strong with Misery and Shadow Crash, as the 2 charges on your Mind Blast, which gets replaced by Shadow Word Void, a Vampiric Touch, and Shadow Crash along with 2 Mind Flay ticks will get you into Void form relatively quickly as well, if you're using Legacy of the Void that is, though a bit slower of course than Fortress of the Mind and Dark Void. Shadow Word Void therefore is stronger when you're fighting fewer targets, for example a 2-target cleave, while Fortress of the Mind is stronger for more enemies, where you will want to get into Void form even faster. Our level 30 talent row welcomes Sand Lane now, however it does not increase the damage of Vampiric Touch anymore. Body and Soul will typically be the best option here, but Sand Lane wins out against Mania at least. Our level 45 talent row is pretty interesting, as all 3 talents are pretty strong on their own terms. Twist of Fate is the ultimate single target talent, while Misery is strong against smaller groups of enemies, and Dark Void being strongest for larger packs. As you will be fighting larger groups of enemies most of the time, Dark Void will pull ahead here by a little bit, and as I mentioned before, it synergizes well with Fortress of the Mind. Our level 60 talent row is completely up to you. I personally prefer Mind Bomb in most situations, but where I can't really fear anyone, I will of course stick to Last Word. Our level 75 talent row sees 3 pretty strong talents paired together once more, with Shadow Crash pulling ahead of both Shadow Word Death and Auspicious Spirits in most situations. Shadow Word Death is very strong in a single target situation, or rather in any single target situation, however, is pretty good for cleave situations as well. I have no doubts that Auspicious Spirits will become a lot stronger than it is currently, again deeper within the expansion, once more critical strike rating and especially more haste rating will become more prevalent throughout the game. In our level 90 talent row, we have Lingering Insanity, Mindbender, and Void Torrent, with both Mindbender and Lingering Insanity finding most of the use. Mindbender is generally the best option for you to opt for, as not only will it increase the duration of your void form, it will also get you back into void form a lot quicker than Lingering Insanity. On top of this, currently your void forms are just too short to reach an effective amount of Lingering Insanity, limiting its capabilities for the Shadow Priest. The same issue, ironically, makes Void Torrent weak as well, as short Void forms just don't justify Void Torrent, and its current damage is just too low to compete with that of Mindbender. Finally, in our level 100 talent row, we have the most pivotal of all talent rows, with Legacy of the Void, Dark Ascension, and Surrender to Madness. Spoiler alert at this point, you will be using Legacy of the Void a lot more frequently in most cases than Dark Ascension, but both are very strong. Legacy of the Void is strong because it reduces the cast time of Void Eruption, as well as only requiring 60 Insanity to enter Void form. This is very good in Mythic Plus, for example, where you will be dropping in and out of Void form constantly, especially with a skilled group where your poles will be chained onto one another with very few breaks. Dark Ascension, on the other hand, is super strong in a single target situation, as well as in dungeons with less trash and more bosses. The instant access to Void form is incredibly helpful, and the fact that via Dark Ascension you can directly go Void form back to back definitely allows for some very effective gameplay and for some very strong direct damage. Surrender to Madness is currently not in an overly competitive state, and I'm hoping that this will get changed in patch 8.1, or rather the 8.1 Shadow Priest soft rework, but we will have to wait and see. I can't really say much about the talent currently, as it's just not in a state where we can discuss it really. Overall, you can see that our talents are very diverse in Battle for Azeroth, offering a lot of fun, engaging, and thought-provoking decisions to make in any combat situation. If you want to know which talent to use for which boss in a raid, or which talents to specifically use in Mythic Plus, be sure to check out my videos about those as well. The link should pop up on the top of your screen now if I have already posted them on my channel. Okay, let's talk rotation. As mentioned at the beginning of my video, if you want to see a detailed and step-by-step video of my rotation, be sure to check out my Shadow Priest rotation video for Battle for Azeroth with the link in the description as well as on your screen now. That being said, your rotation is definitely not as hectic as it had been before, however, there are definitely more buttons for you to press. When starting off any encounter, you will want to reach the Insanity threshold required to enter Void form as quickly as possible. For Legacy of the Void, this is at 60 Insanity, and for Dark Ascension and Surrender to Madness, this would be at 90 Insanity. If you're fighting a single enemy, you will want to pre-cast Vampiric Touch, followed by a Shadow Word Pain, then Mind Blast, and then filling with Mind Flay. Keep channeling Mind Flay until Mind Blast is off cooldown, and repeat this process until you can enter Void form. Once entered, you want to try and stay in Void form for as long you possibly can. This is achieved by the same process as you entered Void form with the only difference that you will now keep your Void Bolt on cooldown, using it as frequently as you possibly can, and fill with Mind Blast if Void Bolt is not ready, then with Mind Flay. Your Mindbender, if spec'd, will also help you with staying in Void form, and in a single target situation where you will have Shadow Word Death typically, will do the same once you're in execute range. In a multi-target situation, or a situation with more than one target, things change. When using Misery, you want to be sure to apply Vampiric Touch, and therefore Shadow Word Pain, to your targets if you're looking at 2 targets, possibly 3, if they live long enough and are stacked together. If you're using Dark Void, you will want to use the 30 Insanity it gives you as quickly as possible to enter Void form, not only for a fast entrance, but also so that it is ready for you to use again once you are in Void form. The same rule applies to Shadow Crash, as you will want to use its Insanity boost to get you into Void form, as well as once you're inside to stay in even longer. Once you're fighting 3 enemies or more, you will always want to replace Mind Flay with Mind Sear, as the Insanity generation of Mind Sear will be higher than that of Mind Flay by exactly 1 Insanity, and 5 more Insanity per extra target you hit with it. For Shadow Crash, try and hit as many targets as you can, meaning you always want to aim the bolt towards the largest stacked group of enemies. For Dark Void, always try and target the most central enemy within a group so that Shadow Word Pain can spread to as many enemies as possible. The same rule of course applies to your cast of Void Eruption as well as to your channel of Mindseer. Alright, after all of this information, we've essentially covered the ins and outs of the Shadow Priest. Overall, the spec currently plays a little bit clunky, but this will be hardly noticeable for beginners, a bit more so though for experienced priests. From a competitive standpoint, Shadow Priests are definitely viable and can hold their own against most other competitors. Through the heavy buffs to our AoE damage, our more diverse playstyle, and our very versatile talent build, the class has the tools and base down to become a very interesting, engaging, and strong class in battle for Azeroth. A few changes will definitely still have to be made, no doubt, especially to the way our playstyle evolves around Insanity and around Voidform. For patch 8.1, I hope Blizzard takes a look at these things and keeps them in mind for the planned Shadow Priest changes in BFA's first content patch. As always, let me know what you guys think. How do you like the Shadow Priest so far, and what would you like to see changed? I'd be very excited to see, and if you want to get in contact with me or any other Shadow Priests in our community, be sure to join our Discord server, with the link of course in the description. Not only is this a place for you to discuss all things priest, share thoughts and ideas, and to make new friends, it's also a place where you can enter giveaways, community polls or events, and much, much more. Now, as always, thank you so much for watching. I truly hope that this guide helps you becoming a better player and a better Shadow Priest, and for all returning Shadow Priests, I hope that this guide will ease your journey in the early stages of battle for Azeroth. If you liked this video, please leave a like, and if you want to stay updated on the content of this channel, feel free to subscribe. Special thanks to all patrons over at Patreon as well, as your support is greatly appreciated and improves this channel day to day and month by month. Now, of course, have a good one my friends, and I will see you all in the next one.